Hey everybody, Adam Phillips here, and this week for my Untold Stories newsletter, I thought I would talk about the things that I did this past Saturday, September 27th. There were a couple of big events. One is Los Angeles Comic-Con, which I'm going to write about, but for the other one, I thought I would do a little show and tell on video. So, basically, what happened was, middle of last week or so, I got an email from Amoeba Music saying that they were going to have a big sale on box sets of CDs on Saturday. I am a big collector of music. I'm sure there are others that are bigger, but I'm a big collector of music, and I like to buy music of all kinds. And, you know, before we moved out here from New Jersey, I'm in Los Angeles now, where we moved 10 years ago from New Jersey. But way back then, for the 6 months or so before we left the area, I was borrowing box sets of CDs and things like that from the local public library system and ripping the MP3 files and putting them in iTunes and stuff. And that was great, but I do feel like it would be better to have the actual boxes and discs and things. So I thought I'll go to this Amoeba Music sale and see what it was like. And I had a few things in mind that I was looking for, but a lot of things I was just hoping to see what I could see. So here's a few things I was hoping to see, and then what I actually got. The biggest thing on my list to look for was the complete Ella Fitzgerald songbook CDs. She recorded these records in, I guess, the late 1950s, early 1960s for Verve Records, and they are sets dedicated to Irving Berlin and Rodgers and Hart, and of course Rodgers and Hammerstein, and Cole Porter, and lots of other composers, and they're all fantastic. She's an incredible singer, as you know, and these were all done with a single orchestra in different sessions and the same arranger. But the one that stands out to me is the set that she did with the Duke Ellington Orchestra, all Duke Ellington compositions, of course, and that is maybe a cut above the rest in terms of how it swings and things like that. Anyway, but the box set is like 13 CDs. It's a lot. So, yeah, I was hoping to see it. Didn't see it. Other ones I was looking for, the Rhino Records 1970s compilation. It's like 5 or 6 discs, and it's called Have a Nice Decade. And it's got a lot of great obscure music on it that I loved when I was a kid. The only detriment to it, really, in my opinion, is that every 4 or 5 tracks you'll get something like this stuck in between that kind of, you know, breaks the flow. Let's listen.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Yeah, you know, when you're listening to the Guess Who and then you want to listen to Edison Lighthouse or what have you, having whatever, some headline about Patty Hearst stuck in there really is a little disruptive. Rhino also did a great box set of 1980s music, and I liked some of it at the time. I like more of it now, I think. Groups like Depeche Mode and Duran Duran and what have you. I wouldn't necessarily want full albums by these groups, some of them, but, you know, a best of kind of compilation like this that sort of encompasses a whole era is pretty great. Another one, the complete Atlantic Rhythm and Blues singles, 7 CDs. I have a couple of them as standalones, but I'd sure love to have the whole thing. So I looked for that, didn't see it. And then there are a couple of the Beatles box sets. I've got the MP3s. I'd rather have the full boxes of discs, like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band Deluxe Collection, and also the White Album Deluxe Collection. I have the 2-disc of the White Album. You know, there's a lot more available if you get the deluxe version. And then there's some Bob Dylan things I would have looked for too, like this Rolling Thunder Review 1975 complete set That's a lot of discs of recordings from all sorts of different dates on the tour. I've just never gotten around to buying it because it's kind of expensive. I actually have the 1966 collection by Dylan. That was, done in England during the time when he was just starting to tour with the band, and that's the famous Judas tour. Anyway, it's great, so I wouldn't mind having the Rolling Thunder Review tour box to go with it. But what I did get was also pretty fun. So, and the prices were unbelievably low. So you gotta like that. So I'm gonna take a look, and we'll start here with "Living in the Material World" by George Harrison. This was a $5 purchase. It's probably the only thing I got that was not really necessary or what I wanted or whatever. I got home and realized I already had this one, not the box, but the CD. I had misremembered. The one I'm missing is Dark Horse, not Living in the Material World. So the CD that's in this box is exactly the same as the one on my shelf. The difference with the box is only that they've added a second disc, which is a DVD of some performances from 1991. I'm sure they're fine. I tend never to watch those things, or if I watch them, I'll watch them once, because usually when I want to listen to music, it's because I'm reading or writing or something, not, to watch. So that's just me. But still nice to have. Then we've got another $5 purchase. Almost all of these were $5 each, which is crazy. Pink Floyd, Amoeba, one of the worst titled albums in my opinion from the rock era of the 70s. And I'm very curious to hear more Pink Floyd from before Dark Side of the Moon. Obviously, everyone has heard Dark Side of the Moon. It was, a best-selling album for a bazillion weeks. Wish You Were Here, Animals, also, huge. The Wall was everywhere back in the day. I'm not a huge fan of The Wall, but those other albums are pretty great. But before Dark Side of the Moon, they went through a lot of different sort of phases of, first they were a psychedelic band, and then they were kind of a jam band, and this and that. Anyway, Amoeba is from, 1975, I think, or 4, something like that. And this is a 2-disc set. First you've got the studio album, and then you've got a live album. The live album is tracks not at all on the studio album, but it's got only 4 tracks, but these guys knew how to fill up the stage when they were playing live. Astronomy Domini, one of my favorite song titles, Careful with That Axe, Eugene, and Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun, which, if you're a big comics nerd like I am, you know that's how the X-Men got rid of the Sentinels in an issue written by Roy Thomas and drawn by Neil Adams. They set the controls for the Heart of the Sun, and that's where the Sentinels went. The end. Anyway, should be fun to check this out. Oh, and another little note. I just watched an episode of Vinyl Monday about Pink Floyd's early 70s era, and the host of that, Abigail DeVoe, mentioned that on this album, you can see on the cover, you can see the cover of the soundtrack album to the movie Gigi, and for years and years, they had to remove that album cover because of a lawsuit, and apparently they've restored it since then. So thank Evan for lawyers, I guess. Here's an interesting one. Another $5 purchase. Paul Weller. What's it called? More Modern Classics Volume 2. Okay, sure. Anyway, I love Paul Weller. I loved The Jam. I liked Style Council pretty well, but I didn't hear a ton of it. And then he went solo, and I've got some of it here and there. Like I said, for $5, I thought I'll check it out. It's 3 discs, which is a lot, in this beautiful little package. The first 2 discs are studio tracks. Got 41 studio tracks. It's a lot. And then the third disc rather, is all like BBC live sessions. So you can't go wrong with that. I don't know how he went blonde as he got older, but he did. Now we get into some bigger but still cheap boxes. this one's kind of a guilty pleasure. The Police, Message in a Bottle, the complete recordings of the Police. Again, only $5, and this is a 4 CD set. I liked the Police when they first showed up, so to speak. They didn't arrest anyone, haha. But I liked them when they were newish and were sort of a weird fusion of jazz, punk, and reggae. They were never really punk, but they pulled in some nice jazz and reggae influences. By the third album, they were kind of getting a little mushy for me, and I thought Synchronicity was less interesting, let's say. But for $5, having it all in one place and being able to listen to it seems like a pleasure. Now we're going to move into a different mode with some country music. So here's Johnny Cash, Live at San Quentin, Legacy Edition. This is the complete concert from 1969. And I've had different versions of Live at San Quentin over the years. I had it on vinyl, and I have it on my shelf as a CD. But this is the Legacy Edition, 2 discs, including, so it's the full performance, not just Johnny Cash. So you've got songs performed by Carl Perkins, the Statler Brothers, June Carter Cash, and the Carter Family, and a bunch of them all in different configurations sharing the stage over the course of 2 discs. So you really can feel like you're there in prison at Folsom Prison in 1969 with the Man in Black, and it should be a lot of fun. Another country choice here. I was really thrilled to find this one. I have the MP3s, but getting the discs are great. This is Willie Nelson, One Hell of a Ride, 4 discs, $5. It is a great compilation of music viz, and it even included the little shrink wrap in card that came with the album originally. I love Willie Nelson. I was really thrilled to get to see him a little over a year ago at the Hollywood Bowl. He was there as part of his Outlaw Music Festival. The lineup was basically a musician out of North Carolina, I think, who I'd never heard of, then John Cougar Mellencamp, then Bob Dylan, who was fantastic, and finally Willie Nelson and family and friends. And, you know, I've always loved Willie Nelson's guitar playing. He's a fantastic acoustic guitar player. His singing, I've always just loved his tone and his phrasing in his singing, and his songwriting, of course, a fantastic songwriter. So having a box set like this is just excellent for me. Perhaps it would be for you too. Last thing I got. This is the only thing that was over $5, crazily enough, and I think I know why. This is the Ray Charles Complete Country and Western Recordings, 1959 to 1986. Clearly the extra $10 is because it's still in the shrink wrap. No, I don't know why it's more, but it's more. It is a 4 CD set with a book, and it runs the gamut. You know, but Ray Charles really changed popular music around 1960 when he released Modern Sounds and Country and Western. He did, I think, a second and third album in that vein right after, because it was such a huge hit. A hit that his record company thought was never going to be a hit, of course. And he continued recording country music here and there throughout his career, and this goes all the way through the mid-1980s when he was recording duets with people like Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, lots of other people. And, you know, in my opinion, you can never have too much Ray Charles. So I've got the big career overview box set of Ray Charles. I've got an album of his that's all duets with Betty Carter, and an album of his called The Genius Hits the Road, which is all songs about traveling in different states. All excellent music. So, yeah. I tried to keep it down to about $50, and I think, you know, I just barely went over 50. It was a nice crowd there. Not a very big space for the box sets, and, you know, there were people kind of reaching over each other, and I had to say a couple times, why don't you and me switch places so we could get through the boxes more readily. I could have bought more, but I didn't. You know, like there was a Django Reinhardt set, and I thought, well, I've got some Django Reinhardt at home. I don't listen to it that much. Maybe I'll just pass on that. And there was some Billie Holiday. Maybe I should have bought that. I don't know. But if you're trying to get out for $50 or so, you can't really go overboard and buy everything. Oh, and then they had a little K-pop section of box sets too, which somebody from the record store was actually going like, you probably don't want to buy that. And I looked at him funny, and he was like, or maybe you do. I don't know. Anyway, it was a good time and just the start of my day. So you can read more after this. All right. Thank you for listening.